Hello and welcome to Tactically Sound. Today we want to talk about why RPGs need excellent map design. We have a few frustrating map experiences over our career as gamers, and so we nailed it down to kind of three feelings that you get when you play an RPG if you're feeling disappointed by the map. And the first one is feeling uninspired to explore. I think most commonly what I hear is players walk away from Starfield being disappointed in the maps. Initially when they came out, there wasn't a ton of information on them and it just kind of looked flat and uninspiring. They have improved it. There are mods you can improve, but they can't get around, especially if you play the DLC, you'll see this, that it's just a square grid. And I was looking at Fallout 3 and I saw that square grid again. So I think with the Elder Scrolls, they've mostly dodged the square grid look of a map, but with Fallout, they embrace it, which makes sense because you have the Pip-Boy and it's a square. That makes sense, but I don't think it works so much as a design layout for Starfield. I do think they've added some like height and verticality to the maps that gets closer to what we love, which is the Skyrim map. But I think overall I see that. Matt, you brought up a great point that in your mind, there is a game that is the precursor to this. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so, oh my gosh, when I was in high school, I picked up this game. We all know it. It's Mass Effect. It's such a legendary game. If you haven't played it already, the Legendary Edition is awesome. It has all, I think it's Mass Effect 1, 2, and the third one, I believe?
3.
Yeah, it's a trilogy, and it is so good. But, in the first game, there was one part of the game that almost made me stop playing. And it is the part where you have the ability to go traverse space, the galaxy, and land on these like uncharted planets to farm for resources. And this was such, a headache, Spencer, because these would be the most dead, barren maps I've ever seen in video games. I only have a specific set of controls and they have their issues already. And I'm trying to hunt for these resources. It's a glorified space fetch quest mission, and these maps are just dead. They're the most horrible maps, and I'm kind of sad to say, like, yeah, we do start seeing some of that again in Starfield. This is not what I wanted, Spencer.
Right. And with the time I've spent with Mass Effect, I need to go back and finish the first one. I've never played the series. I did get to one of those missions and I did kind of think, oh, interesting. This is pretty barren. I don't know how much they're going to use this, but it's an interesting mechanic. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. But it's certainly uninspiring. The other uninspiring experience I've had was playing Final Fantasy II. Right after Final Fantasy I loved it. I tried Final Fantasy II and I was, exploring, going around. I just go like a little bit south and I get destroyed. And so when that moment when you think you have a full map and you could kind of inch your way along, only to discover that no, you're supposed to stay somewhere and grind or bust out a guide and figure out how you're going to traverse this map. I like the feeling of knowing that the world should tell me a little bit about how dangerous it is. I think it gets better with a game like Morrowind or Oblivion. Like for the most part, I could kind of spot, okay, that's going to be more dangerous. I might want to prepare as I make my way out there. Fallout New Vegas has a classic example with this where I believe there's a certain path you take where there's death claws and like you're really not supposed to go that way. And it's pretty obvious. Now tell me about Elden Ring, because this can go from maybe uninspiring to inspiring. So how have you changed your approach to a game that has combat difficulty built into the exploration?
So this was my experience with Elden Ring and its map. At first, gorgeous. You enter Limgrave, get that open world feel. It's almost that Breath of the Wild feel. Anything is possible. I'm not going to tell you where everything is. Go explore. The world's your oyster. And you open up that map. It looks all hand drawn. Very beautiful. And even if you zoom in, there's some details in there that offer a little bit of curiosity. There's not like these map markers everywhere that are like blowing up the game. But this is the thing too. if this is your first Souls-like game, you're not going to be familiar with how everything can kill you, and you're not going to be familiar with like what areas are harder and what's not harder. Where am I supposed to grind? Where am I supposed to hang out and level up? And you might, if you don't actually look online and kind of study how people play these kind of games, these Soul-like games, you might just give up. And I think a lot of people that happen to. But here's the thing: if you just learn a little bit more about how to play Soul-like games and how to get better at playing them, then all of a sudden this map design and this world, this gameplay experience is going to go from maybe like a 6 or a 7 because you're so frustrated to now a 10. You love the sense of discovery. You love the sense of walking into a surprising challenge now, and you feel confident that you have some fun, interesting areas to level up and grind if need be, especially in Elden Ring.
Yeah, I love that. Now, there is the kind of opposite of what you just described with Elden Ring, and that is kind of the Ubisoft effect of,
Yes.
checklists. I think Starfield sometimes can fall into this category where there's too many map markers, or Diablo 4, I think, falls into this category, where I kind of describe it as like event-based gaming, where you're going from event to event, checking off things. And sometimes that's fun. Sometimes you just want that. So, but when you're expecting the exploration to intrigue you and to slowly kind of pull you from one region to the next, this could kind of ruin it. And I was telling you that I think Grim Dawn and Diablo 3 are similar to Diablo 4, but there's something different. I haven't identified what it is specifically, but tell me, why do map markers overwhelm you? Like, what is it about them that causes you to get discouraged when you're playing an RPG?
So when I see an overwhelming amount of map markers, especially as an adult, we're working adults. We don't have a lot of time. I can just see all of the hours it's going to take to complete all of these missions, these quests, these Easter eggs, if you will, to just see the entire map. And it reminds me of like our to-do lists we make for ourselves. Like if you start looking at everything you have to do, it's easily to get an overwhelmed sense and stress out, right? Instead of, taking one thing at a time, being more focused, right? And then eventually you get everything done. And so that's really why I hate seeing all of these quest markers instead of discovering them or having some of them appear over time as the game is tutorializing itself, right? Throughout that whole level 1 experience. And, Assassin's Creed does this the worst for me. And it is so much more noticeable for me too, because I feel that some of their map design is uninspired. It feels a little bit bland at times, if you will, versus other games where like I'm excited to explore this world now, like I was saying with Elden Ring, that sense of discovery, like what is possible.
Yeah, I totally can relate to that, of like you said, being overwhelmed by the hours that are implied when you look at a map. And like for me, Unicorn Overlord had a great sized map where you want to conquer it. You're like, yes, okay, we got this region done. Oh, there's a couple, like it was checklisty, but in a satisfying way. And I don't, some games get away with it and some games don't. Whereas like, yes, oh, I'm going to go knock that thing out. Oh, this whole thing is my map now. I own this map. And so when you feel like it's capable of being conquered, it's a healthy challenge. But when you feel
you're saying
this
it's
is
more
300
digestible,
hours,
right? You're saying it's more digestible and you can process it and it's engaging that way. I don't think that those Assassin's Creed maps are as digestible. It's just like here's the entire Thanksgiving dinner, all 10 plates. Let's go. Let's see where you start, And versus what you're saying is like, I have the amount of 10 plates of Thanksgiving dinner, but let's explore this plate a little bit more and enjoy this. And I get that sense more when I'm playing a game like Witcher 3. There's tons of map markers in that game. Also Cyberpunk. There's tons of map markers in that game. You can turn things off, toggle them, just like I think you can do that in Assassin's Creed. But the world's interesting and it doesn't feel as swamped. Okay. And so I think it also has to do with how it ties in to the actual gameplay as well.
Yeah, I think that kind of leads me into my next point, which is feeling lost. And so I think about like how the map integrates with these quest markers. Like, how often are you pulling up the map again and then looking where your character is, and it's like a hill and you can't find, you're like, I know there's an entrance to this cave somewhere. The mini map isn't leading me there, nor is the world map. And I've been just roaming around for the last 30 minutes. That is one of the most frustrating experiences. I understand that you want a map to not fill in all of the gaps, but if it's a crucial quest line, or you're just trying to, return to get your reward and you can't, or you're trying to find the NPC that gives you the quest, or you're trying to trigger an event. One that comes to mind for me is Dragon's Dogma. It was so frustrating for me understanding that map design and how am I supposed to know where it's like this person's in this general area. And I know some people prefer that, but for me, that can lead to excessive time being used just trying to figure out the map. And I think that feeling of being lost is a frustrating one. So let's go ahead and talk about the aesthetics of a map. So in-game traversal mechanics that enable players to avoid the map. So you said like, you can have a beautiful map, but you don't necessarily always want to be staring at it. So you have two examples where beautiful map, but you don't need to stare at it constantly to figure out what you need to do next.
Right, and games that I'm thinking about that do this really well would be like Fable with the glitter trail, where you get to follow around and it keeps you in the gameplay, as well as Ghost of Tsushima. They use the wind to guide you to wherever you select on your map as your next objective. And I thought these mechanics are so nice and helpful to keep you immersed into the game. But then as well, like appreciate the map and the mechanics of how it works with your gameplay experience. I want to see more of this actually. Do you enjoy this too when you play your RPGs, Spencer?
Yeah, I don't know if there's too many. One that I can think of is like I've been playing Battle Brothers, and they'll do this thing where you follow footprints, and it's all an overworld map, and the map is the game. Like you are almost exclusively on the map until you have a combat experience or you're in town. And so I think that map, so what it does is it generates a new map seed, and when you start the campaign, stuff shuffles around. And so when you get a quest, there's different types of quests. One quest might be, hey, go escort these people, and you'll see your character moving, very similar to what you were describing at the top of the show. But like you'll see your character kind of moving through these areas. Or no, this was before. I don't think we've mentioned this part. But
no, not yet.
Yeah, but in Battle Brothers, it's very similar. Where it's like your character's moving through, and then you see an event, but now you get forced to fight, and that stressful feeling of watching your resources dwindle. It's like, less food. They just paid the salary, and then they finally arrive at a place, and you're like, yes, we made it. That sense of reward, or getting jumped right before you complete the quest and dying. So that Battle Brothers is all map based, because other quests, you'll see footprints, you follow those footprints, and then you find where the fight is and you go into the fight, and you're looking for on the map itself, like, oh, is that city a citadel or is that city a harbor? Because that has different gameplay implications. If you're going to take the trek out there to go engage with that city, they might not give you a quest because they're a noble house and you're only working with factions right now. Or they might not have quests because they're a small village and they don't ever give small quests. And on that map itself, you are able to read that information via the design of the game. So the aesthetic is everything. But yeah, let's go ahead and move into our dream scenario.
Yes.
So yeah, what is that perfect balance of world map versus mini map, and maybe not even ever having to use a map? Like, what are some RPGs that stand out for you when you think of this?
Well, just like I was mentioning, one of my top RPGs of all time is Ghost of Tsushima. I think they do really well with this map design. It's not overwhelming you with the sense of what you can do. Everything's very easily digestible. And at times, I just feel like I can relax in this game. The world is so beautiful, and not all the quests that you're going to do are high intense combat, which this game definitely offers. It's so fun. But I really, really appreciate, again, I can't stress enough, how the map works well with the in-game experience of exploring and keeping you in the game instead of always checking your map. You're using the wind. I know some people might stress with this, though, because they might not trust this as much. They're so much more used to a mini-map. So I could see how someone might be more interested in using mini-maps. But for me, the less I see on my screen, the more I get to enjoy the game, and I feel more immersed with my character. What about for you?
Yeah, I think for me, there's kind of two scenarios. There's like Grim Dawn, where, I don't feel cheated when I die. I go back to the village and then I go, okay, what route do I want to take next time? And there's this sense of reward that you're going to see new creatures. You're going to see different biomes as you explore further. And so that's one scenario that is the dream scenario for me, where it's like there's a combat difficulty, but there's a biodiversity that encourages you to flesh out that map. You're not going to just like go super far and see all the same stuff. So I think that's a dream scenario. And then for me, kind of what we mentioned already, we could kind of fold this into this topic, but with where the map is the chessboard and the map is the game. So Unicorn Overlord, XCOM, Battle Brothers, where, Banner Saga. And I think maybe final one would be Morrowind and Oblivion and Skyrim, where the map is the personality of the world, and there's a relevance to seeing that map. It's like, oh wow, like, okay, so now we finally get to see what Cyrodiil is like, or now we get to finally see what Skyrim is like, and where you literally have players anticipating where the next game is going to be, because we already know the regions. It's just like, what's it going to look like when we get there? And then when you see the map and you get acquainted with what's been placed in that world, I think that's really exciting. Like, yeah, is it a game that's meaningful enough to you where you would frame the map and other players would see it and be like, oh, that was such a good game? Can the map represent the positive experiences of the game?
Mm-hmm. Totally. And
so tell us, you have your Kingdom Deliverance experience. So tell me about that.
Yes, and so one of the things that I absolutely love about Kingdom Come Deliverance map is not just the charm of this, medieval art style that they're using, but I love that when you fast travel in this game, your marker actually moves along in real time in the game. And so you're seeing the hours go by as you're fast traveling somewhere, but it moves it along the map. And sometimes your character, as you're fast traveling, is going to hit an encounter. Like you just crossed over a bandit camp, and then you're going to have a skill check to see if you can get past them or not. And if not, you're going to enter into combat and fight them. But at times it might tell you snuck past them, you got past, and you're still making your way to your fast travel location. And so I thought that was so cool to incorporate the map in a visual way, and also in such a cool skill check RPG way as well. The only other game that we were talking about that seems to do something similar today is Battle Brothers, you were talking about, right?
Yeah, no, it's kind of like what we said we were hoping Starfield would do with their space travel, where I like games like, there's this game called Halcyon 6 that's very XCOM-like, and it has that mechanic of traveling and using real time as you're going from one place to the next. So it's cool to know that someone has done it, and I think that should become something that we see more in games. Right. But let's leave it there for now. That is why RPGs need excellent map design. If you guys have a game that we didn't mention that we should play or think about when it comes in terms to maps, let us know in the comments. And Matt, where can people follow you along?
You can follow me on Instagram or YouTube at JumbyJumbwa, JumbyJumbwa. I'll see you guys there.
And yeah, you guys are already on the Yetti Den, so go ahead and subscribe, and we will see you guys next time. Later. Bye.